disappointed at the manner of the performance as well as the score?
Yeah, I mean it's always the performance that we got disappointed in. You know, in all the time we've been in Europe, we've always kind of known it's been a big challenge, but always said that as long as we put our best foot forward, you know, we'll deal with it and we'll take the highs and lows. And I said today feels a bit of a low to me, really, because I don't think that was a level of performance that is anything like we can achieve or we have achieved in the past. I'm not saying, you know, the boys aren't working hard. I think we've huffed and puffed at times, but you know, there's a lot of errors in there. Our Achilles heel this season of conceding some soft points out of very, very innocuous situations is reared its head again tonight. I mean, you know, a box kick, you know, another kind of attacking box kick that we don't really get back and cover, and they come up with the ball, and then I'm not quite sure what we were doing defensively. We didn't really work around the corner, we didn't really get any width, and then we didn't really work together to defend, and they just kind of really jog a try on the outside. And that happened again later on with an exit that we could have been in charge of, and we give up the ball again, and then all of a sudden we're under pressure and we're conceding points. And I think that kind of thing is something we've got to snap out of. But I've just said to the lads, I mean, the response I'm expecting is a little bit of anger, really. You know, like I said, we've lost plenty of games and against far worse teams than Clermont in the time I've been at the club and coaching the club. And so that in itself is not an issue to me, but I am expecting us to be a bit angry with some of the things that went out there tonight. And if that's our response, I'll be pleased. What I don't want our response to be is the guys think that, you know, you can just come into training and get on with things, and sooner or later our season will ignite. You know, when you wait for something to happen, it never happens. You know, you got to make it happen in sport, and that's the kind of response I'm wanting. I think it's in some ways it's potentially a good result for us, because you know you clear the decks with a result like that, don't you? You clear the decks and you almost start again, and you go back right to your basics and say, right, what we're going to start with, what are the 3 or 4 things we're going to get right against Ulster, and that's what we'll do. We'll set ourselves some pretty simple targets next week.
You've got a mountain to climb and qualification, as you said beforehand.
Yeah. Well, you know, we've lost a home game now. We didn't lose a home game last season, and we kind of scraped through, didn't we? So it's going to be tough, but we can also look forward to some of the challenges ahead of us. That's what we've always done in the past, and that's what we've got to do. You know, we've got to find new challenges every week. You know, we're still probably a team that's dealing with, for the first time, having a really good season. You know, getting to the Premiership final last season, having a European quarterfinal. We're actually probably still dealing with that, and we're not dealing with it as well as we could. You know, we're not dealing with it with a fight and an anger. As I said, we're dealing with it a little bit like we're still drawing breath a little bit from last season. I think that's what it feels like. We've taken a deep breath, and we haven't actually got back to getting the hard work done yet.
Compared to last year, what would you say about Clermont?
Well, I think Clermont were very, very clinical, weren't they? And obviously, in a lot of ways, I thought Clermont played like the angry side, didn't they? You know, they looked like a team that wasn't going to come here and take second best. They weren't going to let themselves get into a poor position in the pool. You know, I think in reflection, you know, last season, you know, Clermont came out and showed they weren't going to let that happen again, and we didn't respond in kind. You know, we were bullied a bit at the breakdown at times. You know, some of the physical exchanges we lost, and then as the game wore on, like I said, some of our unforced errors, you know, really did start to mount up. And the more we chased the game, the more they mounted up. And in the end, you know, it never looked like we got any real fluidity into the game, did it?
And Luke Cowan, Dickie?
Twisted ankle at this stage. We don't know much more. We'll have an X-ray and then we'll know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, guys.